All right, so today we're going to go over a complete wizard guide, meaning we're going to go over builds, we're going to go over strategies, we're going to go over stats, everything you need to know about the wizard. That will help you kind of transition either going into a wizard or just starting the game. Because I've swapped to Necro, I can't do any more fun little build videos as I've done, so I'm going to give you all the information I've known since I swapped to wizard in this video. Let's get into it. All right, so we're going to go over attributes, we're going to go over set items, we're going to go over recommended builds along with their legendary items, strategies, and then we're going to go over my overall thoughts on the class. As I mentioned, this is probably going to be posted after I swap to Necro, so I'm quitting playing the wizard for the time being, and so all the builds that I've already done and all the knowledge that I've gained, I'm going to go ahead and share it with you all here. Starting off with the attributes, I want to talk about attribute prioritization. First thing is you're going to want to focus on damage, generally speaking, on your classes. After that, you may want to focus on life or armor pen, things like that as a specific class. And so because of that, what we're going to want on the wizard is intelligence. This is going to increase our damage, which is going to give us more, obviously, damage within our skills and just overall really up the effectiveness of our abilities. Now, you can get a lot of damage from all your stats. After that, you're going to want to go for, in my opinion, willpower or fortitude. If you're a PvPer, generally speaking, willpower will give you a little bit more bonuses that allow you to go ahead and extend your CC durations because wizard has a ton of CC. Now, Fortitude here is really focused on PvE group content because you're going to want Armor Pen to increase your crit damage, and that will really work well with Crusaders. So overall, you're going to want to focus on damage, and then after that, potency from Willpower in order for PvP, and then Armor Pen for Fortitude. After that, Vitality's never bad, and then even after that, there really isn't a reason to have Strength because Strength doesn't do anything for you besides give you combat rating. So that's attributes. After that, set items. What set items do I think are particularly amazing on the wizard? So I think that in generally speaking, you're going to want a Grace of the Flagellant set. A 2-piece is honestly absolutely mandatory for the most part. After that, going ahead and going for a 4-piece is really solid in a lot of situations, and going with a 6-piece is exceptionally good in PvP. After the Grace set, something like a 4-piece Vithus in certain builds will really well. Modified also with a 2-piece, maybe Shawl Boss set for the extra primary attack damage, which we can get a lot of damage out of our primary attacks, or potentially a 2-piece Grace set. All of that options are really solid. After that, you could start to get into some more niche builds. A 6-piece or a 4-piece Mount Bank set can always be very good on the wizard, specifically for PvP content, because the shield is absolutely absurd, and if you happen to be running into enemies a lot and you jump into them with potentially a teleport build, you may want to run a Mount Bank set. And then the last option is the Feasting Baron set. I think is a really nice option, and the reason for this is the 2 and 4-piece set is exceptionally good. The 2-piece set's going to go ahead and give you that extra duration of CC effects, and the 4-piece version is going to give you 15% extra damage when you happen to freeze enemies and things like that, which is really good on the wizard for PvP specifically. So those are your options for set items, and I'll talk about which ones I recommend for each build as we go through. Now we have to talk about builds and what I recommend. First off, I'm going to talk about my farming build and what I would recommend there. As I mentioned, we're going to go into the farming build first, and what we have here is really just a build to maximize the ability for us to keep moving, as well as just high damage and high AoE. So what we're running here in skills, we're running Disintegrate, followed by Scorch, Lightning Nova, and Teleport, and then we're running Electrocute in order for us to kind of do as much AoE damage as possible. And then what we're going to be running in legendary items and set items is, first off, we're going to be running Memory of Xiaoyu. This is going to allow our Scorch to conjure orbs that kind of orbit around us. Alora's Fervor here is going to give our Lightning Nova burning effect. The Searing Judgment is going to give our Disintegrate the burning. Gavil's Grand Revelation is going to grant our Disintegrate the ability to deal extra damage when we kill someone. Electro Spike is going to make our Electrocute kind of jump to additional enemies. And the Siphon, the most important part about this build, in my opinion, is going to make our Lightning Nova temporarily increase our movement speed by 60%. So for this build here, we really want to run a specific set item because we're going to be running around very quickly. And the set item we're going to want to run is specifically either a 2-piece Isatar or a 4-piece Isatar, followed by a 2-piece Vithus or a 4-piece Vithus. So if you run a 2-piece Isatar, you're going to want to run a 4-piece Vithus, and if you're going to run a 4-piece Vithus, you want to run a 2-piece Isatar. Now, the reason why we're running this is specifically for the Isatar set. Here, let me just find one option. I believe it's this one. So the Isatar is going to give us movement speed when we defeat an enemy, which is very, very important to keep up and continuously move around the map. If we want to go with a 4-piece, when we get that movement speed increase, both from Isatar as well as from Lightning Nova, we're going to get extra damage. This is a really, really nice combo. And then we're going to run a 2-piece Vithus here. And the reason why this is going to be the case is we're going to increase the movement speed bonus our Lightning Nova is going to give us. And if we decide to run the 4-piece version, you're going to be clicking a lot more because you're going to have to take advantage of your attack speed. The idea here is really when we're talking about farming, I'm talking about open world farming. And the idea is just to pop Scorch, literally pop your Lightning Nova, drop a couple basics, and then continue to move. And then if you happen to find yourself, an enemy's too far away or you're at range, you pop it with a Disintegrate. Or if you find yourself in combat with an elite, this Disintegrate Ray is going to help you finish that one off at a reasonable pace. The idea here is just to go as fast as possible, because the faster you move, the faster you'll be able to kill enemies, and the faster you'll get XP and loot. So our first dungeon build is going to be a maximum damage dungeon build. This is really focused on just dealing as much damage as possible. And for our skills here, we're going to be running Disintegrate, Arcane Wind, Ray of Frost, Teleport, Magic Missile. You could also run Electrocute, but Magic Missile is going to give you a little bit more damage for those single targets. Following that, we're going to look at our legendary items and set items. We're running Mask of Illusions to drop the clone when we teleport. Then we're going to run Waking Invocation for our cloned Ray of Frost. Then we're going to run Searing Judgment for Fiery Disintegrate. Chaos Nexus to allow our Disintegrate to kind of channel into additional enemies nearby. Wind Shaper for the Tornado Arcane Wind. And then Unrepentant Gale for the double charge of Arcane Wind. This is very, very important for the build. And then following that, our set items. There's a couple of options. In my opinion, there's one clear, better option. And that is going to be a 4 to 6-piece Grace set. You can run 4-piece Grace with a 2-piece Shell Boss. You can also run a 4-piece Grace with a potentially 2-piece other sort of sets. And there's a few options here. You could run something like a 2-piece Vithus or something along those lines if you happen to be running some other buffs. Other than that, I highly recommend you go ahead and go for the 6-piece Grace, or you could run a 4-piece Vithus with a 2-piece Grace set. And the way this works is if you're running the Vithus, your clone will actually proc it. However, the way the clone works in the Wizard's kit, it doesn't really proc it all that consistently. I'm not sure what happens with it, but it's a little iffy in terms of proccing Vithus. Both are solid. I'd highly recommend your 6-piece Grace set for PvE content, or a 4-piece Grace followed by a 2-piece Shell Boss. Both are good. The 2-piece Shell Boss along with the 4-piece Grace is going to give you a little bit extra damage if you are a little bit heavier on the microing. All that being said, the general strategy for this build is you're going to run up to some sort of encounter, teleport in, or teleport to dodge, and then you're going to drop everything. You're going to drop the Ray of Frost, followed by a Disintegrate, and then double Tornado, and then Disintegrate again. Now, the reason why we're proccing the Disintegrate first is to let the enemies set on fire and then get the extra damage from Arcane Wind. If you do not do this, you're going to miss out on that first tick of damage that is increased. Overall, pretty simple strategy, maximum damage, some of the biggest damage I've seen for the Wizard. Overall, a very, very good build for dungeons. Our next build is going to be for another dungeon type of build, and this is really going to be maximizing both mobility and damage. This allows you to move quickly if your party is able to keep up with you. If you are going way past your party, which sometimes does happen, I'd recommend you go back to the first build because it's going to give you more damage. However, with this build, you oftentimes save yourself 2 to 3 seconds in getting to the boss fight if your characters and your party in general is very, very quick about it, and therefore you will get more damage out of your build by being there quicker. The idea here is going to be running the Arcane Torrent, Lightning Nova, Ray of Frost, Teleport, followed by Magic Missile. Our legendary items here are going to be Mask of Illusions for that clone, Waking Invocation for the clone Ray of Frost, Sir's Fortuitous Ward's going to give us our shield for a teleport, 99 Wild Arcana is going to give our Arcane Torrent more damage, Aimless One is going to give our Arcane Torrent extra damage and really amplify that skill. And then we have the Siphon, it's going to give us movement speed for our Lightning Nova. Now, what the set items I'd recommend is going to be either the same kind of set items that we would recommend for the first dungeon build. Generally speaking, a 4-piece Grace and a 2-piece Vithus, or a 4-piece Vithus and a 2-piece Grace. Those are your 2 options, and I'd highly recommend, both are solid, but I'd actually recommend, generally speaking, a 4-piece Vithus over a 4-piece Grace. And the reason for this is because of your attack speed bonus, you'll get through your channel faster, and if you have a solid team, you do not need to go further and do more damage than your channel. If you run a 4-piece Grace, you'll do a little bit less damage in that first burst amount. However, you'll out damage over time, and so if you have a longer fight, you may want to go for Grace because you'll absolutely out damage the Vithus, generally speaking, in these scenarios. Now, with all that being said, the general strategy is continuously spam your Lightning Nova and then just teleport to continuously get through that dungeon. When you get to that fight, you're going to spam Lightning Nova first, and then followed by Ray of Frost. So you're going to go Lightning Nova into Ray of Frost, and then you're going to sit there and you're going to channel your Arcane Torrent, and then go through the full channel duration, and then you're going to go ahead and swap to your basic attack, followed by continuously spamming your Lightning Novas. This is going to easily ramp up your attack speed, and you're going to go through this whole combo extremely quickly because of your attack speed increase if you're in Vithus. If you're not, you're going to get through it decently quickly, and then you're going to just go ahead and sit there and spam autos. Pretty solid build, again, for those situations where you need or you want to keep up with your team. If you go with a different build, like the first one I recommend, it's really a lot more damage if you're able to get there at the same time that your party does. So just keep that in mind when you're figuring out what build you want to go for. So now we're going to go over the 3 favorite PvP builds that I've come across when playing the Wizard. The first one here is going to be sort of a standard full control build while also doing meaningful damage, and that is going to be Ray of Frost, Ice Crystal, Black Hole, Teleport, and Magic Missile. And our legendary items here are going to be Shiver Scent Stare, the new one. That's going to allow our Ray of Frost to freeze quicker. Then we're going to have the Frost Reaver's Garment. It's going to have our Ice Crystal now summon a freezing crystal that inflicts a chill and a damage over time. Keep in mind that when you're stacking your chill, it'll actually increase the amount of times, or how quickly rather, you can freeze someone, which is really, really interesting. Then we have the Enervators. It's going to give our Ray of Frost, giving us a shield every single time we hit someone with it. Crystal Guard is going to decrease our Ice Crystal cooldown. We have Negation Blade, that's going to absorb projectiles with our Black Hole, and Devouring Void, that's going to go ahead and have our Black Hole move forward, pulling in enemies. So with that, we actually want to go over our set items here, and there's 2 options. Both of them I actually really, really like. It just depends on what you're looking to do. The first option is going to be a 4-piece Grace, or rather a 6-piece Grace is really, really nice with this build. Not only are you going to get the extra damage from your Ray of Frost and proccing your 6-piece Grace set, but you're also going to get that stun from the 6-piece set effect itself, as well as extra damage. A really nice option. The other option is going to be a 4-piece Vithus and a 2-piece Grace of the Flagellant here. And the great thing with this one is that because you're going to go ahead and proc your Ray of Frost, you're going to get the shield, which is going to give you the attack speed, which is going to make your Ray of Frost channel quicker, which is going to make you freeze enemies quicker. So both are really solid options. Grace is going to heavily favor the extra damage side, and the Vithus is going to make it so that you can jump in and do really, really quick combos and then jump out if that's important to you. Both, I think, are solid options. I tend to favor Grace because I like to do a little bit more damage, but Vithus is really, really nice as well. The basic combo here, and I suppose you might have seen this a lot on my videos recently, but you're going to want to teleport, generally speaking, in front of an enemy, and then Black Hole them if you want to go for a big combo. And then with that Black Hole, you're going to place the Ice Crystal right on top of the enemies in order to get that damage and the stacking chill. And then you're just going to go ahead and drop your Ray of Frost to hit everyone in the area. Or you could generally stay back, play from range, and then use the Ice Crystal and then the Ray of Frost to hit about 2 screens away. And then if someone ever comes near you, you can use the Black Hole as sort of a peeling tool where you could basically prevent people from getting on top of you. It's going to kind of look like this, where you're going to place the Ice Crystal, and then you're going to go ahead and Ray of Frost, and you're going to try to hit people, potentially all the way over here. And then if someone approaches you like a Barbarian or a Crusader, they mount up on their horse, so they charge at you. You just drop the Black Hole, which will carry them away. And then while they're getting carried away, you could drop the Ray of Frost, which will freeze them. And by the time they're done with the Black Hole, they're frozen, and you've already done a bunch of damage to them. A really nice combo, both at range as well as very close to people, to make sure that you survive and just have a lot of CC. The next build is going to be a double beam build, and you can go with a couple of different options here. Now, I really like this build as a general build for the wizard here because you can just purely play from range. Now, really what you're going to want to do with this build is run Ray of Frost plus Disintegrate, Ice Crystal, and Teleport, as well as Magic Missile. However, you can replace Ice Crystal with another option like Black Hole or Slow Time, depending on how you want to play this. You could go with Black Hole if you really need the extra peeling option / extra CC, but it's going to prevent you from doing a lot more damage from range because you can't extend your range with Ice Crystal or even hit everyone in an AoE, and so I prefer Ice Crystal generally speaking. Then we're going to go over our legendary items, and once again, we have a couple of options here. Shiver Sense Stare is going to be a must-have. You're going to want to get that Ray of Frost extra freezes. Frost Reaver's Garment can be changed to another thing, and I generally like Frost Reaver's Garment, generally speaking, because the clone option can be iffy sometimes. However, if you want to do maximum burst damage rather than having general long effectiveness, running the Waking Invocation, which will be the cloned version of the Ray of Frost, is really nice because you could put the clone down and then beam into it yourself, so you get double beam at the same time. Searing Judgment's going to make that fiery Disintegrate Ray. Crystal Guard's going to reduce our Ice Crystal cooldown. Force of Heracus is another option that you can swap out here. This one's going to increase your Magic Missile damage by 20%. I quite like this when I'm chasing down people, but you can run the Entropic Edge, which is going to give your Disintegrate 10% extra damage, and then the offhand literally does not matter because you cannot affect these 3 skills. Now, if you're going to swap in Black Hole, you're going to want to run Devouring Void most of the time, and then followed by Negation Blade or potentially Entropic Edge. All of those have some different options here. This is my favorite version. And then the set items that I'd recommend, once again, we're going to go back to the 6-piece Grace set for PvP. That 6-piece stun AoE big damage effect is really nice. Another option you're going to have is 4-piece Vithus with a 2-piece Grace set. However, with that one, you're going to have a lot more difficult time proccing it ever, and so you're going to have to change up the build. And so generally speaking, go for a 6-piece Grace set rather than going for a 4-piece Vithus in this build. You're going to focus on damage and control, and that's going to really amplify that. And our last PvP build is for those players that are really interested in going into the fight and potentially have higher resonance than some other players out there, because this one is going to be diving into the enemies, which means if you're not healthy enough, you're gonna have a lot of problems. So keep that in mind. The first 2 builds are gonna be generally more useful than this one. This one's gonna be that teleport one-shot build, and we're gonna be running Scorch, followed by Lightning Nova, Ice Armor, Teleport, and Magic Missile. Now, the legendary items here are going to be Memory of Zhao Yu, giving that Scorch Flaming Orbs. We're going to get the Zan Isu Elemental Weave here, and that's going to make our Lightning Nova do Chill effect with the balls. And then the Angmar's Repulsive Burden here is going to make our Scorch knock back even further. This is really impactful in PvP scenarios. Rift Dancer's Stride is going to make our teleport deal damage when we teleport in. Force of Heracus is going to give our basic attack more damage, and then our Siphon is going to increase our movement speed. Now, there's a couple of options for set items for this build. The general purpose here for the set items, you're going to want to go really with 2 options. You could go with a 4-piece Vithus, which I highly recommend. It's going to extend your Ice Armor as well as your movement speed for your Lightning Nova and give you the attack speed, followed by a 2-piece Mountebanks. That's a really nice option. Or you could go full on 6-piece Mountebanks, which is also a really nice option. And I would only do that if you really are looking forward to getting some massive shields and staying into the fight really long time. Now, for this build, you're just going to want to spam your Lightning Nova moving around, and then when you enter a fight, you're going to want to proc your Scorch beforehand, teleport in, and then proc your Lightning Nova immediately after, which will slow people down and their animations. And then you're going to proc Ice Armor. You could proc it beforehand or after, depending on what you're going to want to look for. If you're going to take a bunch of burst damage up front, you may want to proc it beforehand. If you want to kind of bait people in and trick them into thinking you're low HP, you may want to use them after. But generally speaking, you're just going to jump in, pop your Lightning Nova, and then sit there and basic them. And you're going to want to try to stand around the enemy because these orbs will knock them back and actually CC them, which prevents them from doing anything. So if you stand right next to them, by the time the next orb hits, you're going to permanently CC them as long as your Scorch orbs are available, which is really impactful, followed by the slow from the Lightning Nova, which is really massive in terms of CCing and controlling your opponent. So I'll finish off my overall thoughts on the Wizard in the last Challenge Rift here. And overall, I think that the Wizard is one of the best classes in the entire game. And I think that generally speaking, when we're talking about other creators or even my own opinion on the class, I think generally we were just not quite informed on the class because we have not played it and we were taking opinions from the beta version. However, things have absolutely changed, or maybe they just weren't explored enough. I think the Wizard is actually one of the easiest classes in the game to play. As I say that, I go ahead and die, but really, you can be very, very effective as an average player simply going around and playing from 2 screens away, dropping your Ice Crystal, dropping your Disintegrate Ray, and then being incredibly useful, or running Ray of Frost and then just CCing an entire enemy team. It is very, very effective, and you really don't need to do a whole lot in order for you to kind of really wreak havoc on the enemy team. If you want to play a more advanced version, you can absolutely do so. There are some skilled things about the Wizard, no doubt. I just think that when we're talking about the Wizard, it's not as hard as people make it out to seem. It's not this really difficult class compared to any other class, in my opinion. So that's the first thing. The second thing is they're incredibly strong across the game. I think that they're probably, if not the best class, one of the best classes. I think that when we're talking about generally, the Necromancer probably takes the cake for best class in the game, and then the Wizard, followed by the Crusader. Because I think the Crusader is especially good in PvE content, and the Wizard is especially good in PvP content. Because when we're talking about the Wizard, we have all manners of CC, we have all manners of range, we have all manners of damage when we're talking about building in PvP, and the same thing applies for PvE. Our damage is incredibly good with running the Firestorm build with Disintegrate, and we can also really take advantage of a lot of the mobility skills in the game and just really keep up with your team while also dishing out a ton of damage. So that's just the overall thoughts on the Wizard. And then one thing I'll note before I end the video here and then permanently say goodbye to the Wizard, well, at least for the time being until I decide maybe to swap back in the future, is that this class probably should get a nerf. I think that the class is a little too strong just because of all sorts of different things, but mainly because how much they have. And they're sitting here, they have the longest range in the game, they have some of the most powerful CC moves in the game, and then they also have some of the highest damage in the game. And then if you combine all that stuff, it really doesn't seem like one class should top the charts for many different areas of the game in terms of CC, range, and damage. It seems a little stacked. I think that it still is just insane in PvP, and maybe nerf it just for PvP, whereas in PvE, I think that a lot of people can compete. So I'm not too worried about that. I'm really talking about PvP in this case because of how many tools they actually have to deal with everyone. So there you go. Let me know what you think about the Wizard down below. Did I do it justice? Are you going to swap to Wizard, or are you sad to see me go to the Necromancer? I probably have already posted the video about me swapping to the Necromancer already. So I guess, you already know that I am. However, we'll see what happens in terms of me enjoying the Necromancer. I have a feeling that Wizard was probably going to be my class that going to enjoy the most. And so I'm a little scared about the Necromancer because I really hate playing support builds, generally speaking, in all my games. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes, but definitely a little scared. So there you go. And if you did enjoy, like the video, and I'll see you for the next one.